Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alexio Picco. I'm the Managing Director of the Circle Group, and I have the pleasure this morning to moderate this event that is part of the Connecting EU Insights set of events. This morning we are focused on the Ports of Genoa, and we have two projects related to the Port of Genoa, two Connecting Euro facility projects, Vamp Up and the e-bridge, and we have a real great panel with different sessions and high-level experts to elaborate on the two projects, and not only this. The two projects are about mainly infrastructure and infrastructure, meaning digitalization and interoperability between ports and logistic actors. But more than that, we have high-level experts and persons to talk and to speak. Starting from the president of the Ports of Genoa, Paolo Emilio Signorini, and the European coordinator for the Rhine-Alpine corridor, Pavel Wojciechowski. So we have a very nice double interview that we registered a couple of days ago, and we are going to open the event with this double interview. Then we have a session about the role of physical and digital infrastructure to fully integrate ports in the European supply chain. And we have the pleasure to have the General Director of Transport and Infrastructure of the Italian Ministry of Transport, Mr. Enrico Maria Puia, and Oliviero Baccelli, Academic Fellow of the Bocconi University and PTS class, that was also one of the experts following closely the Vamp Up project. Unfortunately, Julian Espina from INEA is sick, and so he cannot be with us this morning. Then we have a second session in which we will have a bit of focus on the EU projects moving from Vamp Up itself. And we have Alberto Pozzobon, Marketing Manager of the Port Authority of the Western Ligurian Sea. I always prefer to say Ports of Genoa because it's more understandable from the perspective of a broader audience. Then we have Luca Battello, CIO of the Circle Group, with a presentation about the evolutive collaborative platform for rail last mile management, that is the part related to the e-bridge project and evolutive customs procedure that are related more to the Vamp Up one. And then Mrs. Francesca Moglia, environmental sustainability and the ongoing EU projects in the Port of Genoa. And then, last but not least, Mr. Jacopo Riccardi, European project management of the Liguria region, with the final, let's say, wrap up in terms of the main logistic initiatives of the Liguria region. So a great panel. I kindly ask you all the speakers to take the time in order to be effective and to stay in the time we set at the beginning. And we will start with this double interview that I really suggest you to follow, because we have been discussing with the president and the European coordinator of many things, including the next generation EU, including the impacts of COVID and so on. So enjoy this double interview, and I will come back to introduce speakers a bit later after the interview. So I ask to my team to start with the interview. Thanks a lot, and see you in 20 minutes more or less.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alexio Picco. I'm the Managing Director of the Circle Group, and you are online on Connecting EU Insights, a set of digital events to let you stay tuned with the main ongoing innovative projects in port and shipping domain in Europe. This morning, the event is dedicated to two relevant Connecting Euro facility projects led by the Ports of Genoa, Vamp Up and e-bridge, dealing with physical and ICT integration between the Ports of Genoa and the related supply chain through technological innovation and digitalization of rail, logistics, and customs procedure. To open up this event, we have the honor to have Mr. Emilio Signorini, Paolo Emilio Signorini, President of the Ports of Genoa, and Mr. Pavel Wojciechowski, that is the European coordinator for the Rhine-Alpine corridor, that is the corridor that is starting or ending in the port of Genoa. So, good morning, Mr. Signorini and Mr. Wojciechowski, and thanks for the participation in the opening of the event in this form of a double interview. I'm going to raise you 4 questions each, You have a bit of time, take your time to answer. And we'll go through smoothly, moving from the first one to the president of the Ports of Genoa. So, Mr. Signorini, Mr. President, the main objective of the Ports of Genoa is now to consolidate its role as a smart and sustainable Mediterranean gateway to Europe. In this respect, which are the main ongoing initiatives that you are boosting to maintain this position and to reach even a higher position as a Mediterranean gateway?
Thank you very much. Hello to everybody. Thanks for the invitation to this very fruitful opportunity to talk about our port, especially after the collapse of the bridge, the Morandi Bridge. In Genoa, we have approved a major infrastructure investment program, 2 billion euros of investment, which mainly aim to better our accessibility to Genoa, both on the maritime and on the land side. On the maritime side, we have to move our breakwaters, both in Genoa and in Vado, because they are too close to our terminals, and we have 2 very big projects that are about to start in order to move away the 2 breakwaters. Whereas on the land side, we have to improve especially rail accessibility both in Genoa and in Vado. And in the program, we have several last mile rail projects that are ongoing and that will be completed by 2023-24 in time with the completion of the third pass high-speed train that will be completed more or less by 2024. By that time, we will have what we call a flat railway from Genoa to Rotterdam, thanks to our transit that has been completed in Genoa. We are also completing our road last mile access to the port in the old basin in Genoa, in Pra, which is the big terminal run by Singapore, and in Vado, where we started operation with the new APM platform in February this year. 2 last remarks. We have 2 very big important green port projects. The infrastructure ministry funded with 29 million euros cold ironing project, both in the cruise terminals in Genoa and in Savona, which we know that is very important for people living in the town, which are very close to the terminal. And we have some other very important urban and social sustainability projects, always to reduce noise pollution, for example, with the new earth dunes in Prague with the Singapore terminal, and some renovation project like Enebik, a very big building that was constructed 1 century ago in the town, has been disrupted for several decades and is now ready to renovation very close to the cruise terminal. And last, the waterfront in the eastern part of the port, the project by Renzo Piano, which also aims to better this very important part of the port, which is so important for leisure, entertainment, for the people living in Genoa.
Thank you very much. All those initiatives are very important in Genoa, but of course they are very important for the corridor because it's the beginning and the end of the Rhine-Alpine corridor, the Port of Genoa. So, Mr. Wojciechowski, how the initiatives of the Port of Genoa can support and harmonize development of the Rhine-Alpine corridor in this respect?
It's good that you said beginning of an end. And in fact, if you look at the North Sea ports, they have a major impact on Benelux and Germany countries in terms of traffic flows. But for me, of course, corridor is a two-way highway. So I fully support the initiatives of the ports of Genova to reinforce the Genoa and Savona as a key gateways to Mediterranean. I would like to recall now the important events that took place just about a month ago. This is the new rail link to Alps that was opened by Switzerland. I mentioned this because I met Minister Paola De Micheli in Locarno, and that was short exchange of views on occasion of Ceneri tunnel opening. And I very much appreciate the commitment of the Italian government to do the infrastructure. You know, Mr. Signorini has mentioned, of course, the high commitment in doing the bridge, the new bridge in Genova. That is truly amazing. In 2 years, that was a major construction here. Of course, but of course, if you look at the Italian projects, all of them, some of them are mentioned in my work plan, and it's agreed to member states. I'm very happy to see the progress on the Terzo Valico project. I'm very happy to see some work on the extension beyond Tortona and Novi Ligure, all the way to Milan Novara. So this is some improvements, and of course some technological upgrades in Chiasso Milano, the doubling of new tracks, and on some sections between Domodossola and Novara. You know, this is very important. Of course, there's some funding available from Connecting Europe facility, and some support has been given so far. So I firmly believe that this project holds the potential to support the development of transport flows in northern Italy, and to counterbalance, to a certain extent, the current imbalance north-south traffic on the corridor. So for me, is the vision of the balanced corridor, north-south and south-north. This, along with the streamlined governance of Liguria ports under one authority, should bring benefits in the future. To sum up, by providing, on one hand, safe and interoperable infrastructure, coupled with the other hand, high quality, efficient, sustainable transport services, we should meet the mobility and transport needs of the users and respond to the challenges of the global economy.
Thanks, Mr. Wojciechowski. Let's switch a bit to one of the topic of the event, so automation and digitalization in ports. So Mr. Signorini, the automation of ports and terminals are certainly the key element in terms of optimization of rail and road flows and use between seaports and inland destinations. What's the approach in terms of automation and digitalization of the ports of Genoa in this respect?
I think this is a very important question, and I am happy that Paolo Wojciechowski is here, because he was here when the bridge collapsed, and we started the discussion with the European Commission, because everybody at that time was really focusing on major infrastructure projects. At that time, there was a real urgency to improve some infrastructure project in order to bridge the gap that we had at that time in order to access our port areas. But I remember very well that the commissioner at the time, when she came to Genoa, stressed the importance also of what we call immaterial intervention, digital intervention. And she really asked to the Port Authority, the region, and the ministry to think of some digital project that the European Commission could have funded in order also to take care of the smooth functioning of the process not only in infrastructural terms, but also on procedural terms. And that's what we did. As you know, at that time, we already had in place the Vamp Up project, which is taking place in Savona. And with the European Commission, we succeeded in funding the e-bridge project. These two projects are crucial for the functioning of our ports in Vado, Savona, and the old basin here in San Pietro di Genoa, because first of all, they aim to improve rail services, the modal shift from road to rail. Now in Genova, we have 87% of the goods that are coming in and out with trucks. So we have to move from 13% rail to at least 20-25. This is not just about building new railroads. It is also about the way that rail services dialogue with the port community system. And these two projects really have the ambition to have a new digital system in place in one and a half year time from now, so that we will have better infrastructure, but also a new digital application, so that we can have more trains coming in and out very smoothly. One final remark is that in this very difficult time with the pandemic, which is spreading all over Europe, we should admit that COVID in some way has helped to implement in a faster time digital innovation in ports, especially because we need to have distancing among operators, people arriving in the port, and the best way to achieve distancing is to have a digital way to do things. So I hope that one good aspect of this terrible time is to speed up digital innovation in our ports.
Thanks a lot. That's very true. This is in a way the pandemic is boosting really digitalization innovation. Mr. Wojciechowski, sharing real-time information among the different players of the chain is a very key element to link the corridor with motorway of the sea, the maritime European space dimension. Which are the initiatives that could help from the European perspective, European Union and perspective, could support this kind of projects similar to Vamp Up and e-bridge, and then of course can be very useful for the streamlining or a streamlined functioning of the corridor?
I'm glad you mentioned the crisis, COVID-19 pandemic, because it showed the importance of efficient supply chains, and of course with now there's a growing number of projects in digitization. You know, from the moment the ship arrives to the ports until the movement of the goods, we need to ensure the efficient transport flows. Of course, the infrastructure is physical. Nothing can be replaced physical movement of goods, but effective data sharing and access to information is crucial here. We look when we look at the logistics sectors and other terminal operators, I think that we're not there yet because of some concerns. Let me just first mention that some concerns of data sharing. So we have to overcome them. Of course, the EU is there to help, to provide some solutions. We also try to finance a lot of projects that would lead to this. And let me just mention some of the projects. For example, the data sharing, traffic management and the Upper Rhine, where you can actually exchange the data to measure the depth of the river, which is very important in real time. But from the port perspective, of course, it's very important to have the last mile connection. From this point of view, I think the Vamp Up project and Vado at the Vado terminal in Savona is a really a very good one. Of course, you mentioned some of the other aspects, with models of the way of the sea, with has to have some relationship with short sea shipment services at the port. But definitely, of course, Mr. Signorini has mentioned the e-bridge project that is actually very, very interesting too, because it addresses the issue of the concept of a smart port, addresses the issue of last mile of rail connection in an innovative way, and of course the road gauge system. So from that point of view, I mean, we very much in the new CEF, we would like to have a greater focus on smart and sustainable projects, and connecting Euro facility is really much focused on that goals as well.
Thanks a lot, and we go now to another level. Let's switch to the times we are living, and next generation EU. Mr. President Signorini, which are the challenges and risks connected to next generation EU?
Well, I think that next generation EU is really what can make the difference between staying alive or being really damaged, but what is happening with the pandemic. Of course, it is a very important program, not only because there is a lot of money coming from Europe, but also because it is very important on how the different member states will spend this money. I feel that the first important remark is that we have to understand that the recovery resilience plan is not like the structural funds, where you can have a very long-term perspective. Next generation is more about a counter-cycle measuring. We need to spend this money in the best way possible. We need to do that in important projects that will make our nations more competitive, but we need to do that by 2026. So we need to have at least feasibility project, but it would be better to have executive project ready, good project, and hopefully project that can start spending in at least 1 or at maximum 2 years from now in order to be completed by 2026. The Port Authority has proposed to the Italian government several projects that could be funded with the Next Generation EU. The new breakwater, the cold iron project that I was referring before, the last mile railway project, and even some green port project. I think that, as I was saying before, we have 2 big challenges in practical terms, in the way that we will be capable of handling the program. The first one is that we have to implement the project respecting the time schedules of the project. Otherwise, we will lose the money. The second one is that, as you know, we have debt and grant financing. So I see that many administrations are focusing only on grants, but we know that half of the funding comes from debt instrument. So I think that it is important to focus also on that aspect. the program. And I think that the European Commission and the member states should think of some financial experts capable of advising administration in order to master the program. For example, the European Investment Bank could be such an advisor.
Mr. Wojciechowski, same question for you. Challenges and risks related to Next Generation EU.
It's to me, right? Okay, well, I'm glad that I have an opportunity to speak on that, because it's maybe the question and the challenges that we have to deal more important to a lot of other stakeholders that would watch this message. Well, first of all, the European Recovery and Resilience Facility would provide, as you know, grants and loans, and it would be based on the investment and reform plans developed by the countries. What is important, and is extremely important, is no national co-financing will be required. That's very important, and considering the large budget split between loans and 312.5 billion of grants and 260 billion in loans. Well, this is a very, very large program, but of course, if you speak about challenges, you know, there is more conditionality in there, because we would like to have the plans, the national plans that would contain investment reform agenda, not just investments per se. So that would have to be, the recovery and resilience plans would have to be linked to the European semesters. And you know, the European semester has country-specific recommendations, including those related to sustainable transport, and general references to green and digital transition. So we would like to look at how we would, in the Commission, would look at how those would be fulfilled. Of course, there's other elements which are debated, but the more political, like conditionality on the rule of law and potential suspension of financing that relates to some of the countries in my region, in the Central European countries, mainly. Of course, the issue of oversight, how to assess the implementation of those plans, how to link those plans to macroeconomic imbalances, for example, suspend them because of lack of improvement of imbalances, and some other targets such as climate change targets. It's very, very important. So that generally Commission would assess the plans on the basis of impact, on competitive sustainability, economic and social resilience, the growth, sustainable growth, and green and digital transition of individual member states. So we could expect, from the point of view of transport, that we should have more projects to support in the cross-border projects, such as, and those are named in the document, such as ERMTMS. Also very important is more funding for collective transport, alternative fuels, rail, of course, rail projects, larger rail projects. But of course, a very important element of that, because the money is available, we ought to spend it wisely, efficiently, and relatively fast. As Mr. Senior has mentioned, there's this element of counter-cyclicality. So have to have some element of fiscal stimulus. So we would look more for mature projects. So in each quarter, we must check which projects are more mature and which projects would be able to complete in the next couple of years. Of course, this does not the funding will not relate only to the infrastructure projects per se, but for example could be related to some of the spending on some other projects related to infrastructure development, such as, for example, renovation of buildings and the train stations, for example, and some others. So this is very important to have this funding available there as well. So altogether, I think that we should spend the money efficiently, looking for more conditionality in the projects, and that would be the good development for development of infrastructure.
Yes, definitely it's a big challenge we have in front in Europe and in Italy, where we are going to have one of the biggest portion of this next generation EU. We are just at the end. Just a very last question with very short answer. Keywords. So, Mr. Signorini, 3 keywords for your vision of the ports of the future.
The first one is community ports. I think that the ports have been isolated as nodes, in transport node for centuries. I don't think this is the case anymore. We have pollution, we have a major impact in terms of accessibility. We need to talk with people, and ports and cities have to be more united. The second word is risk management. In Genoa, we have been going through in the last 2.5 years of any kind of emergency, and one should not think that these are very abnormal situation. I think that we need to improve very much our capability of dealing with emergencies. The third one is capacity. I think this is a very mistaken view about capacity in the port sector in Europe. You should not have the terminal capacity in each port. You should see which kind of standard any single terminal can provide. And you end up with a substitute capacity. New terminals will take the place of old terminals, and you should not just add capacity.
Thanks a lot. Same for you, Mr. Wojciechowski, but for your vision of the corridor of the future.
Okay, just following the words of President Signorini, I would, you asked me for 3 words, I would say efficiency, resilience, and sustainability, and that it would all come up to something which is a high quality infrastructure in the port, around the port, in the city, in the corridor.
Okay, thanks a lot. We are at the end of this double interview, and we thank you very much to Mr. Signorini and Mr. Wojciechowski. We thank you very much for your time and for your availability. I think this will be very useful for the rest of the event. And thanks a lot, and see you next time. Hopefully we will see physically together, and enjoy the rest of Connecting EU Insights, and see you next time again. Thanks a lot to you both. It was a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Okay, it's me again, not registered now in live, and thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this double interview we registered the very last in the last week, and we got a little bit of connection issues at the end, as you got, but okay, I think it was a nice interview. So thanks again to the president and to the coordinator. So let's move now to the first session of this event, dedicated to the role of physical and digital infrastructure to fully integrate ports in the European supply chain. We have an introduction, a brief speech by the General Director of Transport and Rail Infrastructures of the Italian Ministry of Transport, Mr. Enrico Puia, that was already connected. So I leave the floor to you, Mr. Puia. You can switch on micro and camera, and the floor is yours. Oh, leave the mask. Okay, you can leave the mask out now for a while. Thanks a lot, Mr. Puia.
Good morning, Alexio. Thank you very much for this opportunity and for the invitation and to this important meeting. And I want to congratulate with you and with the President Emilio Signorini for this important meeting. And I want to say thank you to all the participants and all to the European Commission and for the important interview of before. During the lockdown, in a period of course of great difficulty in all Europe, it has been shown that the railway system will all its actors, railway companies and terminal operators and rolling stock managers is a safe, reliable system that favors ecological and social sustainable. Despite this, there are still some factors that the cost of train is too much, and among these above, all the last mile cost, understood as railway maneuvering and terminal operation. The flow of information between the various players in railway logistics is often incomplete and fragmented. In particular, terminals do not exchange, in some cases, information correctly or at the right times with infrastructure, railways company and the road operators. This generates inefficiency and, of course, much cost. For this reason, the bridge project is very important, and I think that we must cooperate in this field also for the future. In recent years, there has finally been a positive curve in the growth of the railway sector, thanks to the digitization of the market, the improvement of the quality of service, and the first infrastructural improvement of the railway network. Finally, the government has also invested in a green transport policy with the so-called Cura del Ferro, iron care. With the infrastructure annexed to the economics and the financial document, the objectives of strategic of national transport policy were outlined. The National Strategic Document of Transport Infrastructure identified the most suitable infrastructure initiative for rail accessibility on ports, terminal, and airports, and show Italy to be better connected to Europe and to the Mediterranean transport system. In accordance with the political indication, the 5 years contract between Italian Ministry of Transport and the Rete Ferroviaria Italiana, defining investment project and other terms of conditions such as network maintenance to encourage the development of the railway system. Identify among the others the specified section port and interport, last penultimate railway mile, and the connection to the network. Sorry. In general, the investment in this section are concentrated on core ports and the terminal, and consist in construction of upgrading of the railway system serving the terminals, and technological and infrastructural upgrading of the connection lines to the national network. The type of intervention may concern the adapting to the European standard, the electrification extended to the pickup and delivery trucks, the upgrade of the station plan, and the installation of the long signaling system. In summary, we can say that in the last years, a major transformation which should result in the structural benefit for the Italian logistics system has been set in order to the connection of the national railway network with the ports, freight ports, terminals, and the logistical platform. The result will be visible over the next years, but the foundation has been laid. An investment in infrastructure for 1 million euros, which must be added to the 4 billion envisaged for the intervention dedicated to the freight transport. The goal is the development of intermodal service and the transfer of increasing shares for goods from road to rail. It may seem paradox, but in some Italian ports, and Italy there are many important ports, they are poorly connected to the railway network, and in many cases they are not at all. We can therefore say that this 1 billion investment program will reduce a serious logistical delay, which hinders the transport of goods in our country for the future. Thank you very much again, and I hope that we can develop also for the future an important other important project in the field of promote the intermodal system and the digitization of the data from the different modal transport. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Puya. It is important to underline that railway projects, sorry, not only infrastructural, but also infrastructural and digitalization projects in the railway sector are quite much important. There are a lot of needs and requirements in terms of interoperability, and that is why projects such as Vamp Up and eBridge have been funded, and more projects will come in the near future. Now I leave the floor. I see you already on stage, Mr. Oliviero Baccelli from the Bocconi University MPTS class. It was closely following the project since the beginning, and is also a top-level expert in market analysis, corridor analysis, and many other things. So Oliviero, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alexio. Can you see the presentation?
Still not. We see a screen about the connection we've got to webinar. So probably you have to put the PowerPoint on. Huh?
Yeah, it's on. Can you
now,
see
okay.
it right now? Okay.
Now yes, put it in the full screen mode, and that's fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it right now. If I can find the correct. Okay. No. Sorry for this technical problem, but as I was saying during the preparation of this workshop, this is the not normal platform that we use at the university.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Oliviero?
Yeah.
Hello,
I
hi.
can hear you.
Is it a PowerPoint file or a PDF?
It's a PowerPoint.
All right. Try your function F5.
Okay. It doesn't work, sorry.
FN, F5, or Control plus F5.
Control F5. No.
No. Anyway, we see it actually quite good, so I think that's
okay. Sorry for this inconvenience, but I don't know how to solve it. Maybe if from the circle side, can you do something else?
No, actually no, because it's
Okay.
a file on your laptop, but we see the presentation quite well, so I guess we can go on, and there's no problem at all.
Okay, thanks. My presentation is about the role of intermodal transport for a sustainable supply chain, and I would like to present some specific topics related to the growing relevance of an efficient and sustainable transport network, especially for northern Italy. Then I would like to underline the importance of the completion of the TEN-T corridor in this part of Italy, and then I will present some specific data related to a case study on the Rhine-Alpine corridor, presenting the results of a very simple analysis, comparing the results from a broader perspective, considering all the externalities, and comparing these results with the point of view of the operators. And then I will close my presentation with some specific policy recommendation. But first of all, as a transport economist, I would like always to underline one specific aspect of transport. Transport is a derived demand, and that's always important to underline, because it can help to understand the demand, can help to prioritize the policies and the infrastructure investments. In this slide, I would like to present two very simple territorial indicators used in order to understand the role of the global value chains in the wider economic context. As you can see from these two tables, the first one is related to the percentage of the export value of commodities on the gross domestic products, and I would like to stress two data. The first one is that all the number related to Italy, to northern Italy, and especially to the regions that are part of the catchment areas of Genoa, are growing. So the relevance of the participation, the relevance of the export values on commodities on gross domestic products is growing. That means that for the growth of the Italian economy, considering the role of export is very, very important. And as you know, transport services are part of the value of the export. The second indicator is related to the degree of commercial openness of the manufacturing sectors. This indicator is the typically considered the global value chains indicators. And also these indicators emphasize two things: the growing importance of the manufacturer sector on gross domestic products, and the importance for northern Italy, that is much higher comparing to the national average. To sum up the results of this slide, the role of global value chains on gross domestic product in Italy is growing. Therefore, it's very important to have efficient and sustainable transport networks that can sustain this macro trend strictly related to the importance of import and export. How can you sustain these trends and encourage sustainable transport policies in northwestern part of Italy? As already Mr. Signorini and Wojciechowski emphasized, there are many different tools to that can help to reach this goal. Digital solutions, harmonizing standards, and new type of relationship between stakeholders. This part is also very important, as Mr. Signorini emphasized in his speech. Community ports, the concept of community port is very important, and also new solutions to facilitate seamless exchanges between modes, the port community systems. That is at the that is the core part of e-bridge project. It's very important. But at the end, the most relevant in terms of economic results, it's transport infrastructure investments. And in this slide, there is a very, very simple scheme that underlines the relevance of the core network of the trans-European network policies, and the role of Terzo Valico, the Trans-Apennine-based tunnel, is extremely important for Genoa and for enlarging the catchment areas, for reducing the cost for the railway services, and also to extend the importance of the connection between the railways and many sectors of the maritime system that at present cannot use railways, as for instance the rural traffic. This is the long-term scenario. All these corridors will be completed by 2030. Luckily, the Terzo Valico will be completed in 2023. But what shall we do in the meantime? That's the slide that I was describing the beginning, the case study. I would like, as a transport economist, underline the importance of having an efficient intermodal services from 2 points of view. The sustainable point of view, that means that we calculate the externalities of the two systems that you can use to reach the Bergamo area. The case is a door-to-door transport services from Boltri terminal to Bergamo area, with railway service and intermodal railway services compared to road service. As you can see from the data concerning accident, air pollution, climate change, noise, congestion, and well-to-tank, as you do in very common cost-benefit analysis, you can see that the difference from for road transport and intermodal railway transport is huge. You can reduce transport externalities by 53% if you use a more complex door-to-door service based on intermodal railways transport compared to road transport. This is the case of an efficient intermodal service that, from the corridor point of that can be considered the 2024 scenario, because in order to reach these results, you need to have an efficient railway services with long trains with the 21 wagons and 2 intermodal transport units per each wagons. That's important to underline because these results can be reached only in 2024, while at present, since the Terzo Valico railway infrastructure is still on construction, you have at present a non-efficient railway networks at disposal. But in any case, the environmental benefits of shifting from road transport to door-to-door intermodal services are important. You can reach the goal of reducing by 43% the total cost of externalities using door-to-door intermodal transport services, even if the railway service is not efficient. In this case, the trains are much shorter, 550 meters long, with only 16 wagons. as you can see, the externalities are much lower in the intermodal railway case. But from the point of view of operators that at the end have as a priority the cost, the financial cost of the door-to-door service, the comparison between road service and intermodal service is interesting only if the intermodal railway services can be completely efficient. And as you can see from the results of this table, the financial benefits for the operator is much lower compared to the wider economic effect for the community, considering the externalities. As you can remember from the slide before, the average savings for externalities were around 54 and 64 euro per each intermodal transport unit. As you can see from this table, the financial benefits for the operators are much more limited. In case of an efficient intermodal railway service, you can save around 18 euro per each intermodal transport unit. This, what does it mean from the operator's point of view? That you need to have huge intermodal, huge economies of scale in order to consider the hypothesis of using a more complex system and with a reduced flexibility as the intermodal railway service. In case of a 2020 scenario with a non-efficient intermodal railway service, the financial benefits for the operators simply do not exist because there are inefficiencies in the railway service, because the train is much shorter compared to the efficient one, and there are also some cost of port maneuver that are still too high and non-efficient. And this, what does it mean? That without subsidies, the operators will not use the intermodal railway services in a non-efficient intermodal railway case, or with a very limited use only for empty containers that do not need any type of flexibilities, or with very low frequencies. So at the end of my presentation, that of course is strictly related to what Mr. Signorini and Mr. Wojciechowski were saying before, the importance of having a resilient system, a sustainable system that consider also the risk management. The policy recommendation that I would like to underline at the end of this short presentation is that you should consider to have some specific instruments, policy tools, in order to support the railway system in this period from 2020 to 2024, when the Terzo Valico will allow, and the Terzo Valico and the investment in the node area of Genoa in order to reduce the cost of maneuver. So in this 4-year period, it can be interesting to have a specific framework for state aid in order to have, in short term, a more resilient system, not only based on road transport that, as Mr. Signorini was saying, as the vast majority of the modal share of 87%, and you will have a system that can contribute to the decarbonization of the logistic process, because as I was presenting before, the results in terms of a reduction of environmental externalities are really important when you shift from road to rail, and you will enhance the importance of the infrastructure and investments already done by the port terminals and the inland terminals. In the medium terms, it's also very important, this kind of policy, also because it can stimulate operators to anticipate the investments in locomotives, wagons, but also in know-how, in organizational aspects, and in digital aspects, in order to contribute to valorize the port community system and to valorize all the investment that the ports of Genoa have done in the port railway system. This also will reduce the risk of postponing the important growing opportunities for intermodal railway services that will that there will be in the market when all the transport networks, the efficient transport networks included in the Connecting Europe Facility program will be completed. So I will end my presentation with simply saying and remarking the importance of the work that Mr. Signorini and Paul Wojciechowski were saying, adding community ports, reduce the risk and increase the efficiency.
Thanks a lot, Oliviero. It was really nice and important to see and to have your overview on the, let me say, economics of the inland of supporting an inland terminal or railway in terms of sustainability. Of course, the fact that you talk about state aid, it's a very interesting point that could lead a very long discussion about it, because you know quite clear that there is also another tendency right now running, at least a couple of tendencies. But one is that to include other modes in the emission and trading systems. That is, for instance, there is the possibility to include the maritime transport in it. That is a way to counterbalance, I mean, in another way, the effect of the climate change and to support innovation that is slightly different from state aid. But this could be a very nice talk about the different kind of policies that you could do in a very specific meeting. So I would take this into my mind, because this is a very interesting point for the future. So thanks for your participation, Oliviero. It was very nice to have you here, and also following one of the two projects specifically, namely Vamp Up. So thanks a lot. We move now to we move now to the other session, that is the session on the EU projects, and of course we start from Vamp Up. So from the original project manager of the project since a long time ago, Alberto Pozzobon, marketing manager, Port Authority of the Western Liguria Sea. Alberto, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I will try to show you my screen. So let's see if it works now. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, Alberto.
Yes, okay, everything right. Okay, so we can start, right. Hello everybody. Thank you, Alexio. Thank you, Circle, for organizing this webinar. And thank you to all the speakers and all the audience. I hope everyone is safe in this critical moment we are living. Okay. Yes, my name is Alberto Pozzobon. I'm the manager of the Vamp Up SEF project, which after 4 years period by the end of the month will get to the conclusion of its activities. So the Vamp Up project was conceived in 2015 by the Port Authority of Savona and its partner Vado, Vado intermodal operator, as an integral part of the wide development plan of the port of Vado Ligure, which was centered on the realization of a new multi-purpose platform with a new deep sea container terminal able to cater for the ultra-large container ships, and on the enhancement of port logistics activities in the surrounding area. Well, the aim of Vamp Up then was to improve the integration between transport modes, and particularly to encourage rail transport in order to cope with the huge increase of container traffic expected in the port, and with the special target to set up a new southern gateway from the Med Sea to the European corridors. So that's why the European Commission, acknowledging the relevance of the Vamp Up project, decided to provide support to the project, and including it in the CEF 2015 funded proposals. Well, going back to the origin of the project, in September 2016, we had the kickoff meeting of the project in Vado Ligure in the presence of the coordinator, Wojciechowski. And in this picture, we can see also that the current president of the authority, Mr. Signorini, was present on that day, but with a different hat. At the time, he was Secretary General of Liguria region. Yes, as a matter of fact, since then, several events have occurred, deeply influencing the development of the project. In 2017, we had the merger between the port authorities of Savona and Genova. Then, in 2018, the dramatic collapse of the Morandi Bridge, followed by another dramatic event, the fire which destroyed the headquarters of the port authority in Savona. Now we are in the middle of a world pandemic. So all these events had a deep influence on the project and put a lot of pressure on the project management team, and forced a rearrangement of the project activities. And in this regard, I would like to warmly thank Julian Espina, the project officer from INEA, who unfortunately can't be with us today, but he really gave all his best and a lot of patience and comprehension, and an invaluable contribution to drive the project to its successful contribution. So, going to the details of the project, we have prepared as part of the communication activities of the project a short video clip that I would like to show you in order to make you aware of what has been going on in these years. So please, I ask the staff to start the video. Okay, thank you. So I hope you have enjoyed the movie. I think it can clearly represents what has been going on in Vado Ligure. Can you see my presentation again? I hope so. So I would like just to add a few words on the meaning of innovation in the, within the Vamp Up project. As I told you, when we decided to realize this new development plan of the port of Vado Ligure, it was clear that a strong boost to the efficiency of railway transport service was needed in order to cope with the expected container traffic increase. And due to geographical and cost constraints, it was also clear that this new efficiency had to be found with the existing infrastructures, so making the best use of the existing infrastructures. And in Vado Ligure, as in most of the Italian ports, railway operations were managed, and in some cases still are managed in a traditional human-based way, with a lot of paper documents exchange, vocal instructions by phone or by voice, and manual switches and manned level crossings. So there was plenty of space to use the use of existing technology aimed at innovating procedures and speeding up operations and raising safety level. So we are not talking about research and development of new technology, but we are talking about a kind of relative innovation, introducing existing technology in a rather underdeveloped environment. So in this respect, two were the main issues that we decided to deal with within the Vamp Up project. So the first is the improvement and automation of rail operations on the Vado Ligure last mile system. In this respect, we carried out preliminary studies in order to upgrade, to define what would be the best ways to upgrade the last mile railway facilities, and particularly to implement a computerized signaling system along the railway last mile, including automated switches and level crossings. Well, these actions are now being developed by RFI, the National Railway Infrastructures Company, which is managing the railway last mile facilities. Then, as shown in the video, we decided to build an automated railway gate along the link, the railway link connecting the port to the network. And the portal is equipped with all the devices needed to detect the shape and composition of the train in transit, and to detect also container and wagon codes, and to share all the information with the port community systems and all the actors involved. The automation systems that the system that has been implemented allows also the communication of operating instructions in order, so such as gate status and green light to train transits, and is ready for the automation also of customs procedures, which according to the regulations that are being studied by the national agency, customs agency, which is also a partner of the Vamp Up project. Of this specific issue, I think Luca Abatello in the next presentation will provide you all the details. Then the last activity that was included in the Vamp Up project was the realization of a last mile digital management system aimed at digitalizing all the information flows between the actors involved in last mile railway operations. And in this respect, study analyzing all the flows, information flows and processes of the last mile rail operations was carried out, and also with the aim to define which were the best ways to integrate the last mile railway system with all the supply chain. Then, following the merger between the port authorities of Savona and Genova, we decided to suspend the implementation of the railway management system in order to develop it in a broader scope and extend it to all the ports of our network, so Savona, Vado Ligure, Genova, and Voltri. And this activity is now being carried on by the e-bridge project, which is the new set project that the ports of Genoa are developing. And Luca will talk you about, will tell you about this project as well. So, coming to the end of my speech and of the Vamp Up adventure, I would like to thank once more the European Commission for the support given to the project. Of course, all the staff of the Port Authority, our partner VIO, and all the stakeholders for their contribution to the success of the project. It's my hope that we can get rid of the COVID pandemic soon, and that Vado Ligure can continue to grow and to offer its contribution to the reinforcement of the European economy. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Alberto, for the introduction of this session and the explanation of the innovation automation in the rail last mile access in the port of Vado Ligure related to Vamp Up. We move now to a little bit more to e-bridge, but also with some, let's say, follow-up of what you presented in Vamp Up. So I leave the floor to Luca Battello, that's CIO of the Circle Group, for his presentation on the evolutive collaborative platforms for rail last mile management and evolutive customs procedure. Luca, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to join with all of you this kind of important meeting. So I thank you all the participants, and I try to go a little more in detail about some topics that Alberto already introduced before. Presentation focus on two components: the rail last mile management and the evolutive customs procedure that were focus of one of the focus of the Vamp Up project, and is now one of the focus of the ongoing bridge project. The starting point, as ever, is the Rhine-Alpine corridor and the capture area that for infrastructure evolution and for digital and immaterial infrastructure that we are developing in cooperation with the Ports Authority, give the opportunity to exploit to a Central Europe the capture area that now from the Genoa port is more concentrated on the north part, of Italy. We know all that there is ongoing a very important infrastructure project that is the famous Terzo Valico overpass that will be finished before end of 2023 or early 2024. So in our vision, in the vision of the bridge project and in the vision of the stakeholdership panel that we are cooperating with, it's really important that all the immaterial and signaling and digital project will be finished before the end of infrastructure evolution, in order to give immediately the opportunity to exploit the physical opportunity that the new third pass will give to the Ligurian port, and to give the opportunity to the actors to use immediately the new infrastructure in order to have more and additional connection to the Central Europe. This is a very high-level roadmap that we shared with all the actors. Alberto summarized the results and the deliverables of the Vamp Up project. There are a lot of ongoing projects talking about signaling, talking about infrastructure, and talking about digitalization. What is really, really important is that all these activities and all these projects have an objective date, as you can see in this very high level map, an objective date to arrive to a final end, to the final result before the end of the infrastructure activity on the third pass. There is infrastructural activity that Autorità di Sistema Portuale is managing, the Port of Genoa is managing with RFI, already anticipated by Alberto, that give the opportunity to all the Sampierdarena basin to use in the next 3 years with an expansion and of capacity and also a signaling system in the port to better use the rail infrastructure in the Genoa Sampierdarena part of the port. Similar activities, the first part was already completed with a second track connecting the PSA terminal in PSA Pravoltri, and so also in this basin there will be an important evolution and additional opportunities. Similar activities are ongoing in Savona and in Vado. Also on this part, there were an agreement with RFI, and in the next 3 years there will be an expansion of railway capacity. So really important, and here is a zoom on the Vado part of the rail infrastructure. So all these 5 pictures give us a view that from infrastructure point of view, in the next years, we will have really a new world and a new mix of opportunity from this perspective. So in the meanwhile, the really important thing we are coordinating inside the bridge project is the immaterial, the digital part of the rail last mile components, putting together interoperability, new organizational topics, new digital services that give you opportunity to share activities and to use new digital services, putting together the terminal, the shanty manager, the railway companies, the infrastructure manager, RFI, or the multimodal transport operator that offer this kind of service on the market, obviously the customs, in order to simplify control and security, maintaining the security, obviously, of the goods entering and exiting from the Genoa ports, and all the port community. And I stress the importance of the concept of port community because in all the Genoa ports, ever there was a strong commitment from the port community, and also the operators and the association that represent the operator worked and are working in a very strong way in this direction. So also the cooperation with the actors and the association is really, really important. And I like to mention the work that Botta and Pitto from Spedi Porto are doing in order to increase the participation and the commitment of all the actors in the port community from this perspective. And also the terminals are doing a very, very important job. As was anticipated, the first result of this was achieved during the summer, in which finally a last mile dashboard now is ready and available for the operators that give in real time the information of all the train entering and exiting from all the Genoa ports nodes, giving a real-time information about delay, about forecasted time of arrival, and detailed about the trains. So this was a first concrete result achieved inside the bridge project, starting obviously from the result obtained in the Vamp Up project. Another very important topic, sorry for the Italian, but I extracted from the formal agreement, so I didn't want to change the formal agreement. the important agreement that was signed 1st of October between the Ports of Genoa and the custom agency in Italy, so Mr. Signorini and Mr. Minenna, giving for the next 2 years very important projects, talking about the logistic simplified zone, talking about the gate automation related to the rail business, and simplification of related control. This is one of the focal point of the next year in order to give the opportunity to create and to increase the interaction using digital services between the, for example, the gate that Alberto before let you see in the picture that is now in Vado, and the system AIDA from Italian custom agency, in order to give the opportunity to the custom officer and to the Guardia di Finanza officer a real time view of what is passing through the gate, so entering and exiting from the port. This is a national project that we are coordinating with the Italian minister, and thanks Mr. Puglia that is participating today to the meeting. And inside this project, there is an important optimization of a last mile interoperability, talking about also all the public entities that have to do controls. The topic is not to reduce control, but to give the opportunity to make in a digital way the controls, especially in a very complex situation as we are from a sanitary reason, and to give it a dashboard in which in real time we can know if there are green light or red line or yellow line color talking about controls. And so if all the goods could be charged on the train can go out, or if there are problems, we will know in advance before starting the charging operation, in order to reduce modification during the train movement, but obviously it's impossible in the train business. This is summarized in a slide, and I thanks our friends of customs, particularly Mr. Marco Mattiocco and Daniele Bottone, that are coordinating this kind of activities. And inside this activity, the Italian Customs Agency is giving again another opportunity to the Italian logistic and intermodal system to use this kind of simplification in order to attract additional traffic, focusing on the simplified procedure that are coming from this activity. The last topic is the optimization. We are doing a research, we did in the past a research project, and we are doing a pilot in Genoa Port, in cooperation obviously with the port community, the port authority, the team inside the port authority that is managing this kind of activity, particularly Laura Ghio, Annalisa Delfino, and Francesca Pino, that is focusing this component. These are particularly important, and also in cooperation with the shunting company for Muro, managed by Guido Porta, in which will be available an opportunity to schedule and reschedule real time and to receive from artificial intelligence suggestions to the operators in order to increase the KPI and the usage of the infrastructure, maintaining the control on human specialist operators, but receiving suggestions and proposals from the digital system. And again, this is another objective of next year. Thank you very much for the attention. I'd like to the floor to Alex.
Thanks a lot, Luca. It was important to see definitely more in detail about how much the digitalization in terms of making the interoperability between logistic and railway actors simpler is going on. And that is quite an important activity with a lot of needs and requirements. So not only needs, I think, all over Europe. And it is good to see that in a way the two projects Vamp Up more on the Savona port and Bridge more on the Genoa one, they are really supporting this initiative and these kind of initiatives, this digitalization. So we move now to a flash on the different EU projects related to environmental sustainability. So I leave the floor to Mrs. Francesca Moglia, that is the EU Policy Officer from the Ports Authority of the Western Ligurian Sea. Francesca, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I start with sharing the screen. Okay, I hope you can see it.
Yes, Francesca.
Okay, I would like to go back to the first slide. Okay, so well, good morning to everyone. We have seen till now the two main projects that we are carrying out as the Ports of Genoa, so Vamp Up and the bridge. And so we have already talking about digitalization and let's say investments that are either material for the case of Vamp Up and immaterial for the case of the bridge. And now I would like to call back to the two keywords that Mr. Signorini and Mr. Wojciechowski told at the beginning of our meeting today, and in particular the community port of Mr. Signorini and the sustainability of Mr. Wojciechowski. Because now we focus on the other projects that we're carrying out, also thanks to European funds that are more on the material side, so material infrastructure, at least for what concerns cold ironing. As you know, and as we were telling at the beginning, and as is written everywhere on the press, we are for sure one of the first ports in Europe, the first in Italy, and we are the premier Mediterranean gateway to Europe. But as my president, as my secretary general also always repeat, there is still a lot of work that we have to do. And a big part of this work is, of course, to complete our infrastructural programs. So carry out our infrastructure, what is not easy because there are always many obstacles that have to be faced. And the second key challenge is for sure that of becoming a community port. So we have to deal with the public acceptance, and this is also not very easy, especially for a port that is in the city. It's not only near the city, but it's really in the city. And for sure, our environmental policy is one of the instruments that allow us to face this key challenge and to be accepted by the urban communities. So we have a master plan, an energy master plan, with some very important investments that are carried out in the short and medium term. So I just listed some of them, not all of them. We have the cold ironing in the terminal, in the container terminal in Pra, that is almost completed. So it's a very big achievement because also this work has had some delays, like all major infrastructure. And also this year with the COVID, the building yard had to stop for a while. So now everything has started again, and we think that we will complete the construction works for next year. So first trimester, so first three months of March next year. And then we have other European funds, this time through the European Regional Development Fund, that are going to finance some pilot actions in different fields, but still in the environmental sector. So these pilots are concerning alternative energy. So, for instance, the GNL facility with the possibility to finance LNG refueling stations. And then we have a project concerning noise, and another, I will go a little bit in detail after, and another that concerns the better system to monitor the pollutants in the water of the port. And then we have we plan to install a photovoltaic system in all the buildings of the ports, either in Genoa and Savona, and the same for the Stazione Marittima, so for the cruise terminal in the port of Genoa, and then to develop a smart grid is to start with Savona. So as you see, it's a wide range of projects in the environmental sector. And as I was telling, what is also the purpose and the focus of the meeting of this morning is to focus the importance that the European funds have in carrying out also these projects concerning environment. So cold ironing started in there are some most major projects, the ship repairs. So in the ship repairs area, the cold ironing is currently underway and is almost completed. The same for Pra, as I was telling you before. And then we will go on with the cruise terminals in both the ports, and then there is the start. We are in the startup phase also for the Vado container terminal. Well, the objective, the aims of these projects are clear. We have to reduce air pollutants and noise. And we have, as I was telling you before, to reach the satisfaction of the urban communities that really live close to the port area, because this is a real problem. As you know, the urban communities can be very tough and can decide to accompany the port in its development, or can decide to stop it. And this is why it is very important to work with them and to convince them of the importance of the port, and that the port can develop in a sustainable way, so taking into account also their needs. And this is what we are trying to do, of course. This is why the project of cold ironing started, especially where the urban areas are more near, more, let's say, committed to decide what is good for them or not. And so this is why we started with the ship area, and now we are working on the terminal in Pra. Together with the cold ironing intervention in the container terminal in Pra, there is, as it was said this morning by Mr. Signorini, also the intervention on the dunes, so the separation dunes between the port and the city. So there are two complementary investments, and so they are for the benefit of the environment and of the residents of the area. The cold ironing is co-financed by the European Union for the 20% of its value. So the investment is of about 12 million euros, and so we won the selection by the European Union to get the 20% refunded by thanks to the Connecting Europe Facility instrument. And so this is a picture, let's say, of the terminal, and there are 4 shipbirds, and 2 converters will be installed with specific detailed characteristics, and this would allow, of course, the ships that are waiting in the port to be able to detach their engines and work with the electric supply power in the terminal. And of course, this is a big result, a big achievement, because this is one of the main, so the engine of the ships is one of the main reasons, of the main cause for pollutants in the port. And then we have the other projects that are again co-financed by the European Union, again in the environmental field. This time we have granted some funds from the Regional Development Fund. So there are 3 projects that are in so Interreg Italia France Maritime, and as you can see, they put together different subjects, because this time we work in a partenariat, so in a community, while in the case of the project of coal ironing, we are alone, because we are the only beneficiary of the project. In this case, so the GNL Facil will finance and is financing, because the project is underway, pilot action with the mobile LNG refueling stations, and so we are concluding the tender for buying and managing a prototype of this refueling station that will be placed in Genoa, and then will move to the other ports that are part of the partnership. And so it's, let's say, to show how the alternative source of, let's say, of energy can be used in the port. And then we have the Impatino project that is again developed, financed through the European Development Fund. This time the pilot actions concerned the wastewater disposal, so the possibility to find the best way to manage a monitoring system of the waste, so concerning the waste that is produced in the port. And then the third project is the Rumble project. This time we are dealing with noise, and so how we reduce noise pollution in the maritime cooperation space that is at the center of this possibility to be financed. And so this time the coordination is by Regione Liguria, and of course this is a very important aspect, because we work very much together. And we are back again to the community port of my president. So we work together, port, city and region. Is not possible anymore to think, as it was in the past, that each one focuses on his strategies and without thinking of the rest of the territory, the rest of the region and the rest of the city. For the 3 projects, the total budget is about 2 million euros, between 2 million and 2.5 million. And the program Interreg covers 85% of the investment. So this was really a very short focus, let's say, a descriptive one, in the sense where we show you what we are doing, thanks also to the European presence and to the European funds. So just as a conclusion, well, we know that we are doing very well as a port. As I was telling at the beginning, we are implementing a very important infrastructural program. We are on the Rhine-Alpine corridor, and this is again a big chance that we have, because, well, it's somehow also geographic. I mean, we are there, and we have the opportunity to take more funds and to have higher visibility in the European Union. But we have, of course, to be able to keep our position, and we can compete without any doubt with the major European ports, but as we were telling at the beginning, we have to do it assuring environmental and urban and social sustainability. So this is really one of the key challenges that we have to face, and we can face it also thanks sharing a European vision, and also thanks to the European funds that, as we were saying at the beginning, are very high and really very important and allow us to carry out our programs. And so I've finished.
Thanks a lot, Francesca, for the comprehensive presentation. We thought it was important to have also an overarching view, not only about digitalization, but also about sustainability, because we know quite well how much the two things are going together in this period, specifically framed in the overall European policy of the Green Deal. So last but not least, we move to frame again, in a way, the digitalization projects in a larger framework, the one about the logistics initiative of the Regione Liguria. So I pass the floor to Jacopo Riccardi, that is responsible in Regione Liguria for the logistics projects. So Riccardo, the floor is yours. Jacopo, sorry, the floor is yours.
Thank you to everybody. Thank you, Alexio. Thank you to all the Circle staff for the organization of this interesting webinar. I hope that you see the screen, but I ask confirmation.
Yes, Jacopo, we see.
Perfectly, thank you. My speech will not be aimed really at making a list of the activities of the region in the field of logistics. Also, if the title say it, because considering the shape of the webinar, I prefer to provide you with some suggestion, and as last speaker also even a provocation of how my office, so Regione Liguria, port and logistics sector, generally approaches the topic of innovation. So is not maybe so focused on Vamp Up and the bridge project, but is linked to this project because is a basic approach, is a fundamental approach common to this project and other initiatives. You see two symbolic images. On the left, an illustration dated around 1890 from an American gazette, which expressed the fear of the damage and risks of the introduction of the electricity, a typical example of fear of innovation. The path has been long, and so on the right, the cover of a book from last year, a bestseller of the 4.0 approach, which also dealt with the digitization of the Genoa airport. This slide is indispensable premise. On the left, you can read in Italian, sorry, a summary of Article 116 of the fundamental of the Constitution, as amended in 2001, which lists among the so-called concurrent matters. It is those in which the legislation is divided between the central state and the regions. On the right, the official gazette in which the reform on the port law was published in 2016, which declares that the port authorities are of significant national interest. It's in this space that the region must find the capacity and the tools to maneuver. And there, the provocation. Despite or perhaps this regulatory framework, what's the regional's real, concrete, operational space for acting on the technological planning of logistics, both port and inland? The answer is nothing. It's clear that serious reflection is needed. Also because the region is involved in plans, programs, projects concerning logistics and act by law in the construction of European law ascendant and descendant phase, and expresses opinion and provides contribution also in national legislation. In these days, for example, we are building the opinion on a bill to reform the inland terminal system, so very linked to port and logistics activity. Really shortly, you can see here the cover of the third report of the World In TWI 2050 initiative, edited by the Austrian International Institute for Applied System Analysis. It's a global research initiative in support of the United Nations 2030 agenda. The goal is to provide the fact-based knowledge to support the policy process and implementation of the sustainable development goal. And here the innovation has been the foundation of human and societal development since the dawn of civilization. While it has resulted in enormous benefits for human well-being, the unconstrained development of innovation has placed the societies and ecosystem at risk. So we have a long-term vision, but we are sure that the COVID lesson, and not only historical example, don't show us that the forecast always has important margins of error. The graph on the left was published on Forbes in last November. Please note the adjective real. And on the right, to joking also sentences that show that also the real important manager have to do in error, to make an error in their prevision. So in the slide you can recognize in the left a photo taken from the German standard DIN spec 91345, with which, as you know, represent the first attempt to standardize and systematize the 4.0 paradigm through the implementation of the reference architectural model industry. So in our approach, we have three pillars: Christensen model, event centered, and enterprise industry 4.0. So the model of disruptive innovation, the event-centric approach is a key distinction of a digital business, which means it is always sensing, always ready, always learning. Digital business is driven by business moments, which are derived from contextualized analysis of event streams, drawing on the resources of the business ecosystem. The real-time situational awareness as you demonstrated moreover in the Luca Avatello presentation, and the context sensing are products of an organization competence in event processing. Excellence in event processing is essential to the success of a smart digital business. This applies, for example, as UNCTAD said in his 14th report in 2020, to the port call process and the maritime logistic chain, just as much as it does to any other business environment. Thanks to the exploitation of the new digital frontiers, Industry 4.0 aims to integrate the technologies that were adopted individually in Industry 3.0. This can happen with the sensorization of the machine, the connection of the physical part with their digital dual. The available data can be transformed in information, so interpreted data. 4.0 means availability of more advanced, reliable, less expensive technologies. Reduction of design and development cost. Availability of data, so the data real asset, real gold that don't shine, don't sparkle, and information external to the process. Possibility also of translating human cognitive processes and the know-how of operators into automatic processes. A further decisive element lies in the ability of companies to carry out vertical and horizontal integration processes that allow for the creation of systems capable of monitoring and enhancing the information generated within the entire production chain. Very important, I think. The scholar who analyzed Industry 4.0 timidly mentioned the usefulness of the smart working. Now that we have been forced to adopt it, I hope it becomes structural and unfolds its positive effects also in the new paradigm. But after a conceptual description, the last my slide, I list some operational fields in which Regione Liguria is trying to act this approach that I described. These are areas of regulation. We listened Mr. Wojciechowski, coordinator of Rhine Alpine Corridor. For example, the revision of Regulation 1315 of 2013, which contains the guideline of the TEN-T network. It's a very important phase. We have yet activated cooperation with the Genoa and Savona port system port. But not only regulation, also project, European project. Francesca Moglia presented a very interesting list of projects ongoing. So for Liguria region, for example, we are cooperating in Italia Marittimo Italia-Francia Marittimo project named OMD to realize an observatory of the dangerous goods traveling on the sea, and it can be represented a prototype of the new hazmat tool provided by the recent regulation, which will send into retirement the Directive 65. also by Ligure Digitale, a project to dematerialize the bill of lading with blockchain technology. And last but not least, we are studying and analyzing the special contribution of IT, of technology in the creation of simplified logistics areas. One that of Genoa already established by so-called Genoa decree and almost active, one that of La Spezia, the subject of a recent decree of national government. So thank you for this opportunity and for attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Riccardo. Yes, you was a bit provocative. You were a bit provocative, specifically when you mentioned also the fact that the competence in logistics and ICT, of course, they are limited currently, and nonetheless, you are doing a lot in this respect, using the tools that you have, of course, that sometimes are not regulatory tools, but they may be others, and EU projects are sometimes something to recover this gap in a way. So we are at the end of our event, so we are in time, even a little bit before what we planned. So I thank you very much, all the experts, the people attending, the attendees. We will send you the material of the workshop later on, and thanks to the Circle team for the organization, specifically Gloria and Marika, and thanks a lot, and stay tuned. We are still the last one of the Connecting You Insights events today. Later on in the afternoon at 4 o'clock, we have the presentation and launch of the Port of the Future Network of Excellence. So thanks a lot. Stay tuned till this afternoon, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.